Rishabh, if you think about the mistakes you made, let's say on this theme, was it you were able to figure them out quickly and it was actually like data from customers or feedback, or were there other kind of themes that helped you figure out that you're making a mistake and helped you optimize?
From an operational standpoint, we force that signal on ourselves by either setting goals that are very large or by doing behaviors in the market that are very extreme. And so between those two things, you can force a lot of signal into the company. The simplest example of this is last March, which was sort of our announcement and sort of like our big release or whatever you want to call it. We put a ton of effort into marketing. We intentionally overwhelmed the ecosystem with marketing activities. And the reason we did that is we knew that that was going to get the fastest reaction, and then we could like tell what was going on. And so everything from as small as like, hey, the chili pepper link is broken because we're seeing 0 inbounds, that doesn't make any sense, all the way up to why are people buying without ever talking to someone or ever seeing what the platform even is. You get signals of all varieties when you like force inbound at that scale. Operationally, we do it that way. Is we like force immense amount of interaction with the market to happen in order to make tons of mistakes at the same time. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of negatives to that, but your learning rate is very fast because you just happen to deploy all of this error all at the same time.
Guys, thanks for joining. For everybody, like one of you, mom, who's listening, just to be clear, I texted Kyle a couple days ago. I was like, yeah, weirdly, I'm free. And then I texted Rishabh. He's like, I'm also weirdly free. So this is a very well planned out podcast / YouTube / internet extravaganza. I don't know. Guys, thanks. We're going to go through a bunch of stuff. We're going to go through a little bit about commerce tech, investing, mistakes Kyle's made, stuff like that.
There's so many. It's the whole hour.
So many. I want to start. I really want to say, what's your origin story? But honestly, let's start with Rishabh, who's the adult in the room. Rishabh, can you introduce yourself a little bit about Fermat and also, yeah, please, and then also where, I don't know, like how you got to Fermat. Like, take a couple minutes. Let's tell everybody who you are.
I thought that my role here was like, I'm Aaron's friend and I'm here to make him look good and look bad all at the same time. My day job is the founder of this company called Fermat, which is like a e-commerce SaaS tool to help brands have like a great shopping experience for every piece of content that they deploy. And the backstory is just, I was at a company called LiveRamp, which is like best known for helping you track people all over the internet. So like the identity backbone for the open web. Almost every ad tech platform in the world uses it in some way, shape, or form. And so when Apple said you're no longer going to be able to track people from app to website, I was like, hey, we got to build a different system. And so that system is now Fermat. Here we are.
I have harder questions, but I'll give you a second. I'll let you breathe and calm down and get more comfortable on the zone. And if you could whiteboard for us halfway through, that'd be great. Kyle Hency, introduce yourself, please.
I can't wait, by the way. Your whiteboarding skills are sharp.
It is Wednesday, so Rishabh's Whiteboard Wednesday should be happening live.
Let's do it. Kyle Hency, co-founder and CEO at GoodDay Software. I formerly built and was one of the co-founders and CEO of Chubbies Schwartz. So very much like as a human being, I spent the majority of my career building Chubbies, which is a totally wild adventure. Tons of fun, triumphant moments, but also a lot of chaos and crazy. But learned a ton over the course of a decade. Spent a lot of time kind of investing in building. We also built Loop Returns while I was at Chubbies, and so a lot of the experience and kind of sitting on the side watching Loop grow and blossom has kind of informed what we're doing at GoodDay, which is we're building a lightweight ERP software that's meant to be an alternative to NetSuite in Shopify's ecosystem.
Wait, did you hire Aaron into Loop?
I did not, but I did get to work with him a ton.
You didn't block it.
I didn't block it. To my credit, I didn't block it. But I do consider myself very lucky to have like actually been in the trenches with Aaron at Loop. It was awesome. It was a great time while he was there, and Loop continues to chug along.
It still is my best water bottle. Rishabh, thanks for turning it to me. My background is much dumber, but still in commerce for a while. Consulting, MBA, and then I started a brand in 2010 on a lark. It was meant to be 3 months, turned into 7 years full time. Sold it in year number 9 for less than we raised, but it was a awesome journey. It was a consumer brand of print on demand watches. We did sports licensing and corporate gifting and influencer stuff and everything in the middle. Too many channels that were pretty good, none that were exceptional. And so I was a very bad founder in that phase. Then co-founded a company called Passport that does international shipping, is still flying high, which is awesome. And now it's like just bought another company. They do globalization for D2C brands. And that was 2017. So like switched much more to the commerce tech side. And then I was in the wilderness for the last very, very long time, where I was like roving investor, advisor, operator, a bunch of companies, including Loop, which was awesome. So I got to be the president there. And then I thought I was done and going to hang out with my kiddos. And then I co-founded Orita a little bit more than a year ago. We help brands get the absolute most out of their list. I am the very cool but pretty useless one of the 3 founders. The other 2 have been building the IP for many years, and I was fortunate they brought me in, both machine learning engineers. So that's us. Rishabh, I want to start with you. You could be doing anything right now. Why are you doing Fermat?
Yeah, it's this is gonna sound like such a cliche, but when I heard about Apple making this change from you can no longer target people from app to website, I had this like series of nightmares where the only 2 places where you would be able to shop are Amazon and Facebook, and like shopping directly from the brand was going to become like an impossibility. And I was like, oh my God, somebody's got to do something about this. And then I sort of like was like, hey, there's no world in which we don't end up with like many stores for a brand, each one unique to the content. Each one unique to the content. And so, that was it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I eventually quit LiveRamp to start doing this, and I still can't stop thinking about it. And yeah, it's one of those like boring and cliche founder stories of like you can't stop thinking about something, and so you just got to do it.
What was the timing of like when you quit and when you started this? Like how long ago was that from now?
I think it was when I first had the thought was like the summer of 2020. Then I gave notice in November of 2020. And then I started working on it a year later.
What's the like, what did you think was going to happen once you started working on late 21, 22, right? Like once you kind of started going that you were just, is there anything that like you were completely wrong on and you've had this like another big epiphany since? Like it's obviously still the same space, but like, I don't know, how's the business changed?
I've been wrong about everything. I mean, I can't think of a single thing I was right about, which is like the crazy thing. I was right about only one thing, which was the Apple change was going to be a disaster for e-com merchants. That was correct. But every idea I had about how to solve it was wrong. And luckily, I think this is like I think most founders have this. I don't know if you guys would agree with it.
I've been correct most of the time, so I don't, this is new.
All right. Hey,
Speaking from my Loop experience, that is dead wrong.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I don't want to lead anybody down the wrong path with the impression that you're going to get most things right. I would say that like just being in the problem space, even though we were wrong, just actively working on stuff, like the correct thing revealed itself. And that's sort of like how these things always go, which is like some customer does something and you're like, wait a second, why'd you do that? And then you just like keep doing that. And then eventually like sort of like the truth reveals itself. So yeah, I mean, we were wrong about everything.
I'm gonna come back a little bit to that, but first I want to go to Kyle and just ask Kyle, for you, like, you know, the Chubbies Loop, getting into GoodDay. Like I watched your journey for a while as you were figuring it out, right? Investing, advising. Can you give just a little bit about the transitional period and how you got to GoodDay?
Yeah, I mean, we were really fortunate with the timing of what happened with Chubbies, and that we were like a mature operating team. We were ready to go when the business started running. We like captured all of the upside. over the course of 2020 and 2021, and sold in September of 2021. So, I spent a year with the acquirer, and then I told myself I'm just going to spend a year on the sidelines. I just remember explicitly like saying like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get strong. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to play some golf. I'm going to do the like year of like introspection. And like 3 months into that, I was like, this is so boring and quiet, and this is just not for me. And the only thing that like turned me into like freaking feeling great was like the idea of getting back into it and competing on some capacity. And so that for me kind of like happened quick, like a lot faster than I would have. I was like really trying to fight it and found myself immediately off the sidelines 3 or 4 months in, and like writing down ideas, thinking back through my experience at Chubbies and being like, well, okay, what happened at Loop here is really interesting, right? Like Chubbies had an acute problem. We built a very specific piece of software to solve that. Now 5,000 merchants use that in Shopify's ecosystem, right? Where else did we have a lot of that sort of complexity, right? And it was like, well, we had a harrowing experience with NetSuite. The tool was quite powerful, literally 12, 18, 24 months after building all sorts of custom scripting on it to make it work for our business. But man, that is an experience that needs to be improved upon. And that was kind of the early kernel of like, oh, interesting. Like there's enough that's moving in this ERP space that like the ERP of the future is going to look nothing like the ERP of the past. Yet NetSuite is still the market leader in Shopify's ecosystem. So like it felt for me very clear once I was zeroed in on that idea that like, yeah, from my experience at Chubbies, where I had a co-founder who led product and 2 co-founders who led marketing, like I was the guy doing this stuff, and I am passionate about it, and I bring a lot more excitement to this space where otherwise there's not a ton. And so as I thought about it, I was like, oh wow, like this is actually a really unique way to help these brands in this next leg, where I think it's going to be a lot less about how do I take my revenue to the top of the mountain and way more about how do I build a resilient business? How do I build a business that can withstand hard times and accelerate during good times? How do I build a business that's profitable way earlier in its life, right? And so as I started to go down that lane, I just got like, I fell in love and was like captivated by like all of the things we could build, how we would do them differently, et cetera. And so, and I would say actually like one of the surprising things with GoodDay, like creeping up on 2 years in, we're almost at our 2-year mark, is that almost everything from day one that Dave and I said, first we'll do this, then we'll do this, then we'll do this, has happened exactly how we imagined, which I think is pretty atypical. Like I always imagine a lot more thrash, but it has been very like clear from day one what needs to happen, and it's happening, which is like a cool, it's just kind of a cool feeling.
Rishabh, do you want to just turn off the camera for a minute? Just have a moment, breathe a little bit. Process.
Yeah, I'm kind of like how. I almost don't believe you. I'm not joking. That's like so unusual, and like
so unusual.
If anybody else is going to start a company and happens to be listening, don't set yourself up with that expectation. Is my only recommendation.
It wasn't my expectation, to be honest.
Yeah, if it happens, it should be like a happy coincidence. That's wild. I've literally never heard that. Literally.
I do think it's kind of the nature of what it is, though. It's very specific, right? And like, look, I think the like question marks about it are kind of obvious. Also, I don't know. Interesting vision. Is that possible? The TBD. We're still in the middle of getting this out into people's hands. There are still elements that we're building that I can totally see why people were building up into that point and stopped, for sure. Like there are elements of it that are just technically very challenging.
Kyle, I feel like, just to maybe get more specific, from my discussions with you, and I'm like a very, very happy investor advisor in your company. Rishabh wouldn't let me in, so it's fine. It's fine. I root for them to go to zero, obviously. But Kyle, like it feels like building an ERP, you're like as intimately familiar with the problem set of your customers as you could be. Like you literally ran one of the fastest growing, most complex D2C businesses that have many channels. Cool. But you also understand with an ERP, it's like it's, you're jumping across a pond, but they're lily pads and you've got to hit all the lily pads. So Rishabh, my sense of what he's saying isn't like, oh, every single line of code was right, right? Or every hire was perfect. I'm sure it was. But it's much more like you've got to build this module and then this module. And like literally you will not have a paying customer until you build the 7 modules. And so you definitively have to do it or else you can't they can't run their business on you, was my take.
I think that's a much clearer way of saying what I was trying to say. And like, truthfully, there is zero capability to MVP in this space. Like, you literally have to show up with 8 MVPs, the equivalent, and the power of the system itself is the fact that there's that much breadth, which is like it's a unique challenge, but we did know that on the way in. That was identified literally on day one. This is the hard part of what we're doing at GoodDay, for sure.
You also, from what I can tell, structured the business as such and capitalized it and hired in the order to fulfill that. It wasn't like, hey, let's go be scrappy and raise 500K and prove something out. It was actually, let's go big from the start. Is that fair?
Yeah, but for this reason. That's what I'm saying. It's just like that was the right assessment of the problem area and what would be required to truly innovate.
Very cool.
That's wild. Do you see like how do you see like risk in that case? Like one of the tough things I think, at least my experience is like the question that I end up interacting with the most is like, what are the right risks for us to take, given we don't know a certain thing or we do know a certain thing? And it sounds like for you, there's a set of like clear knowns, right? And so then what are the clear unknowns or the clear risk areas? And how do you think about interacting with them?
Actually, this question comes up a lot in the question that is like, oh, interesting. Like, you built a Schwartz company and now you're building software. Like, that seems wild. Like what's the difference? And truthfully, the biggest difference is I'm so used to operating extremely rapidly with a lot of signal. Put a new product out, assess whether it's good, bad, ugly, figure out the next leg of what to do with that, etc. This journey is way more like you have 2 years of building in front of you to get to a big milestone, and like, don't let anything stop you no matter what. And you have to get here, 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 and you're going to get very little signal along the way. That's going to be indicative. So that is the biggest challenge, I would just say. Like, assessing risk is really hard when your signal is extremely low.
Similar thought though, you have a ton of rooms in your network, right? Who you're able to bring in. And even if it's just like, you're asking for obviously there's a difference between a paying customer and somebody saying, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
But you're fighting for that signal, even with the limited,
constantly. I mean, we've been bringing on customers this entire time, and we call our early customers co-design partners because we're showing them all of the future design elements of the platform to make sure and validate and get these as much signal as we can. But it's just very I can't describe how different I imagine it to be to Fermat or Orita, where like you have so much data to ingest and react to and imagine optimizing, where that is slow going in the ERP space, I would say.
Rishabh, if you think about the mistakes you made, let's say on this theme, was it you were able to figure them out quickly and it was actually like data from customers or feedback, or was it were there other kind of themes that helped you figure out that you're making a mistake and helped you optimize?
For us, I think it sounds like our operating behaviors are very different from like what's happening at GoodDay, but for us, we get, like you said, Kyle, we get tons of signal. And a lot of it is like, from an operational standpoint, we force that signal on ourselves by either setting like goals that are very large or by doing behaviors in the market that are very extreme. And so like between those two things, you can force a lot of signal into the company, right? So like the simplest example of this is last March, which was sort of like our announcement and sort of like our big release or whatever you want to call it. We put a ton of effort into marketing, and like, I mean, sort of like we intentionally overwhelmed the ecosystem with marketing activities. And the reason we did that is we knew that that was going to get the fastest reaction, and then we could like tell what was going on. And so everything from like as small as like, hey, the Chili Piper link is broken, because like we're seeing zero inbounds. Like that doesn't make any sense. All the way up to like, why are people buying without ever talking to someone or ever seeing what the platform even is? Like you get signals of all varieties when you like force inbound at that scale. And you can then just like, and so you can allow yourself to make an immense amount of mistakes. Like you can say yes to the deal where the person has like never talked to anyone, never seen the platform, and like they don't know why they're buying other than like they've heard about you, right? You can say yes to the deal of like the customer who like clearly should not be buying this because like they are not like doing any marketing, right? But it's like they're preparing to do marketing and they want the best tools. It's like you really should not be buying in that order, right? And so you get all sorts of learnings when you like force that speed of interaction. And I guess that's sort of what operationally we do it that way, is we like force immense amount of interaction with the market to happen in order to like make tons of mistakes at the same time. And then yeah, like there's a lot, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's like a lot of negatives to that. but like your learning rate is like very fast because you just like happen to deploy like all of this error all at the same time.
When you think about that and you're building your team, right? Like part of it is, testing at scale and having code and doing A/B tests, but a lot of this is taste and intuition and being like, oh yeah, we're actually, when somebody comes in and they haven't met with us or they only talked to us once, it's very clear that like, they're going to churn 3 months later. There's a difference between people who are like taking a step back and reading the data and like not even sure, you could have all the data in the world, but you still got to then go look at the right point and then interpret it the right way. And there's what I assume is kind of like the intuition that you have or your co-founder has, or like a couple people on your team. How do you bring a team along when you're moving at that pace?
It's tough. I mean, yeah, I'm curious how like you thought about this also at like Loop or even at Orita right now. But I don't think it's easy because like all of these like micro things that you do to the team, I heard this analogy once of it's like a whip. Like you think it's like this, but then at the end of the whip, it's like this, right? And so it's just like an immense amount of thrash, and people don't know what to react to. Like people don't know where to like have a big reaction or a small reaction, right? So it's like, hey, like yeah, we knew that these were going to be bad customers. Like that's it's not a big deal. But people are like stressed about the fact that it's like, oh my God, these people like don't want this tool. It's like, I mean, yeah, we this was like the purpose of this thing, but the bringing people along, I think is like very hard when you're doing things at like a very high velocity because you just don't have enough time to share all of the context. So I don't have a good answer for like how to do it effectively other than to like be very open and very transparent. But yeah, I don't know what you guys have tried or what you guys have seen be successful.
This is funny. Like I walked into Orita with a product that worked, which means any of the failings are my failings because I'm the go-to-market side of the house. So it's very frustrating. I'm like, oh yeah, if a brand uses us and they use us correctly, like they make more money, right? They're more efficient marketing, yada, yada. So my general approach is I have to do the work myself to figure it out. Like I will do product, I'll do customer success, I'll do like I have to see it and understand it. And then in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'll create a playbook and then hand it off to somebody and she'll execute better, he'll execute better, right? We'll level up. The reality is like my playbooks are garbage. And it's more like I then co-pitch with somebody for a while until I'm like, okay, I trust you. Now let me go turn my attention somewhere else. Like I'm way too chaotic. So I'm never like this. I'm always like this, which means at the end, it's probably like complete whiplash, right, for the team. And so very mindful of that. The thing that DB and I have started doing recently, right? So DB is one of my co-founders. And he kind of oversees more the product side. Zach, other co-founder, oversees the ML side. And I see like the go-to-market side. The thing we started doing, and we'll see if it works, is 2-on-1s, where we are now meeting with every one of our like director levels, basically like functional leads, every single week, the two of us. Because DB and I talk 4 or 5 times a day. And it's very rare if we don't get to a point of like agreeing on something that it's not like, he's bringing in, like we're fundamentally different backgrounds, we bring different perspectives, but we communicate very well. And so like if we're aligned on something, it's pretty clear that it's like this may not be the optimal decision, but it is the right decision for now to move quickly to then learn if it's the wrong decision, right? But like, hey, we can go make a decision quickly. And so what we did 8 months ago when we had a 5 or 6 person team is we started inviting Joelle, who's like a contractor but was exceptional as like setting up our operations, into every one of our meetings. Basically, like we wanted her to hear what we were saying. We also wanted her feedback, but at the very least, like for her to see like the alchemy and how it was coming together to then like go instrument the company. And I think what we've realized is we went so far away from that where he and I are talking and are like very much in sync, but we are neither of us are like great at the downstream communication or the cross-functional communication or however you want to think about it. So instead we're experimenting with truly like every single week. We have like our team meetings, we have everything else, but now whether we have one-on-ones with people or not is a separate discussion. The two-on-one is like for us to create space for them to say, hey, we don't see you two being aligned, or hey, this is a high leverage thing that we're not doing well, or I think I'm wasting time here. What do you think? And then the idea is like we can assimilate the information quickly, bring it to everybody else, and just like it's not going to be changed on the fly. But for me and Kyle see me operate, I'm extraordinarily impatient. If I'm like, oh, we're doing X, we need to do not X. The next time somebody does X again, I'm just like, why didn't we do not X in that situation? So trying basically to maybe like to use, Tony Hsieh, my favorite entrepreneur's like phrasing, like more collisions, right, internally. And it's like creating more opportunities for that. TBD for works. It feels good in the early stage. Like it feels like we're making more decisions and creating more alignment, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, I would just call it like two thoughts, and I think it's always like it's hard because we're like building in such different spaces, right? Like I would say the space that we're building in is like it's just like deep infrastructure, right? So I would very much think of it as like one of the ways that we get there on the context side is we're hiring people who already have a lot of context, and we hold that bar like pretty high. Our merchant success team, it's all people who we worked with before who have also been brand operators. We're just now, as our like fourth merchant success person, are starting to look at brand operators we haven't worked with, but are still close to the fold. One or brands we know, right? But like the reason for that is like if people are trying to problem solve on behalf of these merchants, I personally want to know that they've built a brand before, right? Like that's very different than a support person hopping on the line to try to help you out, right? And so we're just targeting a very high baseline context bar. And then we're also acknowledging like what is most unique about me and Dave starting this. We spent 10 years in the trenches together doing this on the other side. So with the team, there's a lot of like, hey, a lot of work from he and I communicating through the context of like, here's exactly how a merchant is going to think about this, right? Do you have questions about our perspective there? Do we have blind spots that are coming from our experience that might not apply to a lot of these other arenas, right? Like that's the riskiest. Like the model that we're running is a high context model that leans even further into it from a product strategy, from like how we communicate internally, et cetera. Like trust that. The potential downside of it is that our past experience could lead us awry going forward if that's not actually what is best for all merchants. And so we're like super aware of like, ooh, man, we're building this ERP for 5 to 50 million revenue brands, but the last 4 years of our experience at Chubbies was a completely different company than that. So like let's be really clear about where we're pulling these experiences from and what they actually apply to and what they don't. So like but I do think there's a lot of self-awareness around like how brands do operate that is kind of just embedded into everybody here. Our CTO is ex Shopify, right? Our lead of design is ex design in the inventory group at Shopify, right? Like these are people with a lot of baseline context around the other pieces of infrastructure and dependencies that we're building around. And then we have like the best practices that you guys are talking about where man, we have to go to the lengths to give the context or people are never going to be able to fish for themselves. And so I always feel like that activity as the CEO feels a little funny sometimes. You're like, man, I thought I just said this, but I'll say it again for the 12th time. Like, this is what matters. This is what matters. This is what does not matter. Right. And so I do think just, at least as a leader, just kind of committing to that, doing that extra work is important. It's super important.
Yeah, I heard a good phrase. I'm sure you guys have heard it too, which is, you're not communicating enough. If it doesn't feel like you're over communicating.
Totally.
I'm with you. Rishabh, uh, we got a sense from Kyle about how he hires you guys. I mean, you've both built awesome teams that I've seen, but any like non-obvious things, Rishabh, you do in terms of hiring, or like as you're thinking about roles, are you similarly thinking, hey, I want people with deep context already, or do you want to break the mold? Like, I don't know. How do you approach this?
I mean, I don't know, Kyle, if I'm hearing you correctly, but it sounds like a lot of your hiring is within your like it's very network driven. I'm not sure I take the same approach per se. Like my general philosophy is more like I try to ask the question for this, especially for execs, like for this job, like who is the single best person who we could hire for, or who we could get. Whether or not they're gettable is my problem. Like I just want to know who's the best person. And so like I'll like ask a bunch of people like who is the single best like marketer you've ever interacted with? Who's the best engineering leader you've ever interacted with? Who's the best, like I just ask that question. And then sometimes you're lucky enough that you hear the same name over and over again. And then you just spend a lot of time trying to convince the person to join you. So that's one approach.
Where their buddy Kyle's on it, but he keeps rejecting. Okay.
And then
He's trying to get in
yeah.
at all costs. Look at him. He's trying to get in at all costs. You kept him out of that last investment round, and he's coming right at you now.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. The other way I would say that I hire is I tend to, I also, for what it's worth, Kyle, I like, there's a few people who I've just like worked with for a very long time. And so I have like the like, hey, who's the single best person you've like, and I ask that of the industry. And then the other axis is just like people who I've worked with for a very long time. And so I'm like quite fortunate that there are people who I've worked with are like across multiple roles, across multiple companies, and we just sort of like do stuff together. So those are like the two biggest buckets.
Maybe a slightly different topic. As you guys are building right now, all three of us have advisory roles or investment roles, right? And like that ebbs and flows as you have more or less capacity in different companies. How much do you look at other companies, maybe specifically in the commerce space, for like, oh, cool, this is good, we should do this, and also outside of the commerce space? Yeah, Kyle, I want to start with you. Like, how much of your time are you spending outside of GoodDay right now? And then, like, yeah, what are you looking to get out of it aside from like, yeah, helping the founders?
Yeah. Well, I would say in general, as it's like you just have like only so much attention and energy that you can put into the world, and I have a 7, a 5, and a 3-year-old, so like it's competing with like some pretty significant responsibilities, and so as Good Day has like become what it is, I've pretty specifically stepped back from a lot of the investing advising I've been doing, just purely because I'm so excited about it, and I have a bunch of other commitments. Um, but I would say I almost always, in terms of like what is applying to Good Day, I almost always get kernels from adjacent markets that are doing something similar. And the most innovative things I think typically are like inspired. For me, a Good Day for sure, I'm inspired by Rippling, right? That's happening over in this other adjacent market. It's a product platform that has a lot of breadth, which sounds familiar, right? Um, they're very much taking a solution approach, not just a piece of software. And I think there's a big vision for Good Day there. And so I'm typically looking for these adjacent markets that have these kind of that when applied to this very specific vertical opportunity can be quite differentiated and unique. And so in terms of like where my mentality comes from, it's almost always taking that from over here, understanding why elements of that will really excel in the thing that I'm passionate about. And I mean, extremely rarely like, hey, this is my head-on competitor, right? Like I want to do what they're doing, right? And I think the exercise with the competition is always naturally skews to, oh, we're so much better than them in these ways. And I spend 0 minutes of my life thinking about that stuff. I very much am focused on what my competition is doing well. So, so like those are like the two biggest sources of like inspiration from the outside world that I actually do apply in my day to day. Like how can I get that into our product strategy this year? That's like super unique that so and so is doing over in this other adjacent market.
Yeah. Aaron, this question, you've got to tell us what you like, how you think about this, because I don't know why you like everybody knows you. You know everybody, everybody knows you. So like I've got to know your answer to this question. I mean, like, I'm very simple in this one. It's like if somebody's at the seed or early A stage, I would call it, and they're just like looking for somebody to talk to get advice on like, how did you do X? How did you do Y? How did you do early scale? Like 0 to 1, 1 to 5, like those sorts of things. Like I had to ask other people the same questions, and I benefited from a few hires who had seen that story before and could just like come here and do it. And so like I always want to give back. Like I just don't think entrepreneurship works without people just like sharing freely. So I share, I share freely basically. Like I'll probably, I want to call it once every 2 or 3 weeks. I'll like grab coffee with someone and just who's like at the seed stage and just say like, hey, here's what we did and here's how we thought about it and things like that. Investing, I'm like a simpleton. I mean, for now, I'm not investing anymore, but prior to like a couple of months ago, I was like a simpleton about it. I was like, this is a friend. They're starting a company. I'm going to invest. Like it was like not, that was it. That was my entire investment criteria. So it's like, I'm like not an investor. Like there was no way for somebody who I didn't know to like pitch me their company. Like that's not a, I don't view myself as an investor in any way, shape or form. I'm more like just, hey, I want to invest in my friends. But yeah, dude, Aaron, I got to know what you do.
I think the TLDR is actually pretty similar to yours. I always think if I can spend an hour with somebody and save them 10 hours of time, I'll spend the hour. Similar to both you guys, right? We have 2 kids, they're 6 and 8. My wife has like a super intense job, so I put the kids down every night. So I used to joke that I would work 80 or 90 hours a week, and it would be like 50 hours of work and like 40 hours of, I don't know what I was doing, right? Meeting with founders, reading sports news, just like getting distracted. But so I did that for a very, very long time. And I happened just, I think, from being in the Bay Area to bump into a bunch of investors. And then I started referring founders to investors. And then for a lot of people, whether it's from Cleveland or like Columbia undergrad or who knows, like I was their entrepreneur friend. So there were just nodes everywhere where they're like, oh, my buddy is starting X or my wife is starting Y. Can you chat with them? And so I used to get a lot more of these, right? But I would probably very similarly take all those conversations. And I've always found, and probably less strategic maybe than you, Kyle, but like I've always found like, oh, I get inspired or energized, or like there's always some nugget that I get out of a conversation. And it's like so much more fun to talk to somebody about their problems in their business than it is to talk about your own. In 2019, I had the opportunity to sell some secondary of Passport, and I was thinking about being an investor at that point because I'd like helped a bunch of companies and I became a formal advisor, and I like had a lot of deal flow. A lot of funds will text me like, hey, what do you think about these guys? Like I got one the other day from a good friend who I didn't realize was raising, and I texted him immediately. I was like, are you kidding me right now? So it was like that still happens, which is great. But I sold secondary specifically, like I super funded our kids 529s, like college funds, wonderful. And then the rest went to startups. And I made a lot of bad decisions in terms of what I invested in. But the idea was like, before I go raise a micro fund of $2 million, and I'm like, guys, give me 25K, I'll return 250K in 10 years to you. I was like, I can put in 5 or 10K, get the same ownership, get the same experience, and decide, number one, am I a good investor? Number two, am I any good at it? I think, am I a good investor and do I like it? I mean, jury's out on both, but like with Orita, I think 6 months ago was the first time I hit a point where I was just like I could not keep up anymore. So I, it's not I shut down things, but I don't make myself as available, right? I still will take calls, and I'll always take a call after my kids are down at night. I'll go for a walk, or early morning when I'm, not yet in the groove of work. But I'd say like fewer coffee meetings just by from where we live, but like I don't know, I would call somebody else's company once a week, right? Or somebody else who's in a career transition once a week. I think the question is, what do I get out of it now? And I think it's much more like the giving back, or at least like a feel. Who knows if I'm actually creating value for them, but like the sense of cool, I'm like putting in time with somebody else to help them. I do think with Orita, there's like so much that I feel like we're doing pretty well, and I know too many people who are better than me at each function, and so it's like I need to go learn and how to be better. I think I finally hit a point of being good at something isn't good enough. Like if we're going to build a company we want to build, we just got to level up. And so it's like trying to create more of those discussions with people who are like, just if I know you're better than me, I want to learn everything. So that's the selfish part of it. Are there maybe I know we got like 10 minutes left. I kind of want to take a hard right, and I'm curious. And take this wherever you want to go. But like, if you think about building leverage in the company, and you're thinking about AI and Rishabh, I know you whiteboard Wednesday this stuff all the time, but you're thinking about like, what is different about Fermat today, or GoodDay today than it would be if you'd started it 4 years ago with it, assuming again, like the same insights, the same capital, same everything, but like, how are you building it differently now? And is there anything that like for generic seed stage founder, not somebody who's kicking around an idea, but has some capital and is executing, that you guys think are like pretty useful shortcuts or mentalities? Either one you want to start? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think if you're not like seeping in AI in your internal operations, like you've got to start doing it. Like that's like my honest opinion. Like I think 6 months ago, I think it was possible to get away with, hey, like AI is kind of good. It seems more like a party trick. Like you could say that 6 months ago. You cannot say that anymore. Like at this point, it's like a very much like ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for. It's like ask not whether AI is good enough. Ask whether you're good enough to use AI. Like that's where we are. Like that is where we are. And like you would not believe how much leverage is possible. My RevOps lead, she uses Cursor. She has never coded in her life. She does not know how to code, and she's interacting with an IDE. Okay, like this is like not a thing that would have ever happened if it was not for these AI tools. Like, and things that used to take her weeks now take her an hour. To like reconfigure Salesforce, to like she'll set up a BigQuery instance. She's like never interacted with BigQuery in her life. She'll set up a BigQuery instance. She'll like pull data in and out in order to like update everything and like have all these customer journey maps, and like that's happening. And then our like people ops person, like every time there's an interaction on, literally this happened yesterday. Like there was an interaction on Slack about a happy hour, and this bot just showed up and said like, as a reminder, here's our company policy on how to expense for your like. And this bot just showed up out of nowhere and was in the chat with us, right? And like, this is what I mean by you gotta be seeping in it. Like I'm gonna start to do things where I'm gonna encourage like every one of our CSMs that for every one of their customer interactions, they have like an assistant that is like an AI assistant to help them with like their customer interaction, so that we still have the human, but you haven't like the human has an assistant. Everything must be extraordinarily leveraged with AI. And your cost structure can massively change. You can rip out all your ETL tools. You can rip out your analytics tools. You can rip out we're ripping out Fivetran. Like Fivetran used to be seen as like core infrastructure spend for a software company. We don't need Fivetran. I think like if you're not seeping in AI, like, I don't know what you're doing, especially as a seed stage company. Yeah.
Kyle, you want to take the opposite side of this argument for the?
No, I'm good. I'll go ahead and follow his. I'll go ahead and follow his lead. I would actually just call attention to like that 6 month time horizon. I do think is like a real thing. Like I literally was just discussing with our executives that like it's been kind of wild. If you rewind 12 months, is the conversation we had. Like you could make some justifiable arguments that some of this stuff is like showboating in a demo and blah 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 blah, and like be a little skeptical and try to be like the practical leader guy. It's like, man, if you're still dying on that hill, you're gonna die on that hill. You're gonna be there by yourself because everybody else has moved on. And so we've like just clearly entered over the last 12 months a different like part of this journey. I had an advisor, and this was more of like a statement on like product journey. But I think it's like pretty indicative. He is like, look, man, in 100% of scenarios, like autonomous cars are going to be driving human beings around our planet, like as like the majority way means of transportation over the next whatever 3 to 5 years, say a random set of years. Do you really not think people are going to be writing purchase orders like this? Like, come on, like this entire thing is going to completely evolve into being something that it's not at all today. And that's where we're going. So just from a mindset perspective, like prepare yourself for that sort of transformation and everything. I love your idea of just like seep in it, just like sit in it and let it happen and lean into it is like a really good mental model. I totally agree with that mental model. I think that's right.
I'm telling people to think about their career growth the same way, by the way. Like your career growth used to be like, oh, you need to be good at this skill, you need to be good at managing people. It's like there's a dimension now that now exists for you, which is like the people who you used to interact with, their leverage used to be X. Because they are all using AI and you are using AI, everybody's leverage is now 10x. So like imagine how much bandwidth you need to put into a communication between you and the other person. It has to be incredible. And the relationship and the trust has to be very high because you're never going to get all of the communication to happen to be smooth. And so like you have to rethink your career development too. Anyway, I think like the whole thing is like the whole game has shifted. But anyway, like your product is also AI based, Aaron. So I'm assuming you guys are, or at a minimum, DB is seeping in it, if not all of you. So
I just read my history books, man. Just give me space, okay? I like books. So look, I mean, we talk outside of our name being Orita.ai, we do not talk about AI at all. We talk about machine learning, right? So like same, but different. The framing is like we are solving a big data problem. In terms of what do we do to like instrument internally and operationalize, we're probably behind the pack, or we're like in the middle of the pack, right? But we're not. I'd say we're nowhere near where you guys are. I will say the thing that strikes me about what you both just said is like, yes, it's important, but we had our first interaction with a customer where they said yes and they're ready to sign, and then we got to it actually went quiet for a month, and like that happens on deals, and then I was like, hey, you need to meet with the new head of AI for our company. It's a big company, and like the one we met with was super sharp and like understood and knew the business inside out, like, but it was like trying to come up with a business's AI strategy, and like we were maybe part of it somehow, some way. And I think when I reflect on the way that you two just described it, is AI in and of itself isn't. I hear the seeping in, but the seeping in is still like you're it's accomplished some job to be done, right? Like the example you gave was RevOps, and like the output was how do we get the exact same quality report much faster, or how do we get a better report in the same amount of time, or ideally both, right? And I think, Kyle, your point about POs is like, it's not just about you, but it's how your customer is changing it for your like software experience, or your customer service experience needs to change. I think that's where people tend to get stuck. It's like, yeah, I need to do AI, but they haven't identified what job to be done or what problem they're solving. I don't know. That to me is always like, cool. What's the highest leverage thing that you can do for the business? And then great, like go figure out how AI accelerates your learnings or improves the outcome. Guys, this has been really fun. I have like 50 questions for each about fundraising and strategy and org stuff, but I'll save it. I think I've taken enough of your time. I'm willing to give you each a very wise last word, or just like a very quick shout out for who would get value out of you guys and the business. Yeah, whatever you prefer. Kyle, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I spend a lot of time just helping brands, and that's what I'm passionate about. So anybody who needs help, specifically operationally, that's where I've spent most of my career trying to help. So inventory management, order management, like all that sort of stuff. Just like these guys, just want to be genuinely helpful. Um, I guess maybe like a um, quick tidbit of advice, and I think this is also just indicative of where GoodDay is. It's just like when you're building these early stage software businesses, like you just have to be brutally honest with yourself about product market fit. And now that I'm in it, there's so much in your body that wants to push you forward ahead of that in your mind intellectually. But now that I'm in it, I can just viscerally see how wasteful it would be if you push too early. And you would, in this world that is like supercharged by AI, you can just literally burn cash. And that is just like so wasteful and crazy. And I'm just like getting to a place where I really, really think like fundamental core innovation needs to be the priority. And until you found that, what are you doing? And so I've like just been pushed fully through this experience into that camp where I wasn't always there. So I thought that might be helpful to some folks.
Kyle, earlier this week, one of our investors, Brian Sugar, right, who's awesome, Sugar Capital, was like, hey, he basically like effectively was like, young man, you have done this before. You know where you're going. You're like, you see chapter 3. You're on chapter 1. You gotta slow down. And it was like such a good punch in the face to be like, yeah, I know where we're going, so therefore, but like me being impatient is hurting us in myriad ways. So I very much, what you just said very much resonates. Anyway, thank you. Rishabh, off to you.
Like I shared earlier, excited to help anybody who's like in the seed A stage. I'm more helpful on the SaaS side because I've never run a brand, at least my personal experience. And then on the brand side, the only thing I'm actually good at is understanding your marketing, as a consequence of our company. But it turns out anything after that, I don't know anything. So then you call Kyle. So yeah, that's like roughly where I'm somewhat useful to people. I love interacting with people on social, LinkedIn, X. I'm just Rishabh M. Jain in both of those places, so please find me there too. And then, don't make the mistake of giving Aaron your phone number. That's my biggest piece of advice.
Thank you so much. I will actually give you a shout out. You do Whiteboard Wednesdays every Wednesday, and you actually do create really useful content as much as it is to my chagrin. Thanks, guys. This was really fun. I appreciate you both taking the time, and hopefully our 400,000 viewers had a great journey with us as well.
Love
Cheers.
it. Good to
See
see you
everyone.
guys.